Today's episode of Air Capital Hot Rods Garage is going to be the coolest episode we've ever had because we're installing air conditioning. Welcome back to the channel, guys. And like I said, today we're going to be installing a vintage Aire air conditioning system into our 1971 Chevelle. The air conditioning system that I got is modified a little bit by Vintage Aire for the LS engine, so they sent me some special brackets for the LS engine rather than the small block or big block Chevy brackets. It uses a new Sanden air conditioning compressor. I was on the fence. I do have a factory AC compressor, and I think you could probably use it, but Vintage Aire says you can't. There's some debate online on whether or not you can or can't, and basically what it came down to from my research is that you can use it. However, it doesn't work as effectively compared to the Sanden air conditioning compressor. The reason why is they operate at different pressures, so it's just not as effective. So I decided to spend a little bit of extra money and get the Sanden compressor from Vintage Aire. So that's what I'm going with. So first thing I'm going to start with is the condenser on the front of behind the grill. I was putting in my 70 front end onto my 71 Chevelle, and really before I button that up, I need to get the air conditioning condenser in there. The reason why I went ahead and got all the sheet metal and everything is because the 70 and the 71 radiator core support are a little bit different, so I would have had to change it out. So I wanted to get the 70 core support in there and then put the condenser in there. That way I only have to do it once. Wraps up the installation of the condenser here. It was actually not too bad. It did take a little bit of time just reading through the instructions. You really got to read the instructions carefully because these brackets, they want you to put them in a certain spot, and I missed it on the first time. So I installed this lower bracket on the front instead of the back. And then this bracket over here, it wanted you to install it a couple holes over. I had to scoot it over. And then also be careful and make sure that you install it so that your lines, because they're different sizes coming in and out of the condenser here, are on the right orientation. It's really nice. I installed an old Aire kit on my 68 pickup, and I must say that this Vintage Aire kit is just the quality of the installation is a lot better. So you got these hard lines here, and then there's little brackets that hold the hard lines in place instead of just relying on the fittings and everything. So there's mounts here, there's one over there. I like the way that this mounts in here with the holes across the top of the condenser for the brackets. Got the trinary switch here. Got my transmission cooler, and originally it was pretty much right here in the middle. I'm going to scoot it over to this area here, but my transmission lines need to be just a little bit longer, so that'll have to be another project for another day. So that wraps up the installation of the condenser, the front half of it. Next part is either installing the compressor and or installing the evaporator. Well guys, I ran into a problem here. I got low mount AC compressor brackets for this included with my Vintage Aire kit. And basically, if you look down here, the bracket hangs down off the engine here, and it's hitting the steering linkage just like the oil pan was. So Apparently the stock AC compressor doesn't hang quite as low, so it wasn't interfering, but the aftermarket brackets and everything that I got do. So kind of disappointed in that. So have to get some other brackets. I think they make some, and it'll mount the AC compressor out in this vicinity. It's gonna look kind of ugly. I was hoping to mount it down there so it's nice and hidden. So, and of course, I painted the brackets. So, you know, if you got a Camaro or something, want to mount a AC compressor down low, hit me up, because these brackets should work on a Camaro. But so not going to work today. I'll have to order some other brackets. I think ICT Billet and Dirty Dingo and stuff, they have other brackets, and these are made by Allen Grove Components in Lewisburg. The welds look beautiful, and you know, complete kit and everything. So I might just hit them up and see if they can't get me some different brackets too. We'll see. So since our AC compressor is not going to fit on right now, I got all the front stuff taken care of. So now I'm going to start working on the evaporator side of things. I'm going to take this front fender off so I can get to the fan back here. Got to tear apart the dash, all kinds of fun things. So it's going to be some work. So we'll get to it. Got the fender taken off here and got the heater box taken out. So now it's time to move to the inside. Got to remove the dash and the rest of the heater. So that's going to be fun. Well, that kind of wraps up what we can do right now. So got the rear bracket on, the evaporator box, got the heater extensions here installed, got the AC lines installed, and got the front bracket installed. The way the instructions read is they tell you to put this in the car and then put these hoses in here after it's routed through and everything. They're difficult to bend, and then you got to line up the threads and everything. So it's going to be easier to put them on the bench, and I'm going to put the heater hoses on too, and then I'll set it in the car, because you got to feed it through. You got to feed it through these holes in this kick panel. And then you got to feed it through this. So that's what you got to do. One thing I did note that it's kind of odd, is both in this piece and that kickball piece, I had to drill another hole. And they already had holes in them, so I thought that was kind of strange. It's like, why isn't there holes already? So you had to drill the hole for the wiring. And then also, this piece here, in the pictures, it's kind of a diamond shape, and like it's supposed to bolt in here, and down here. So bolt in like up here and down here. So this is obviously is round. So I'll probably just use some sheet metal screws to screw it in. No big deal, but it's kind of odd that the instructions are different than what the piece they sent me. So this is the firewall plate, and so they have you mark the hole in the firewall, and then you're supposed to put some insulation on in here. So I need to get that. I need to get some heater hose. One of these heater hoses here was original when I got the car, so I'm just going to get some new heater hose at the parts store. Hopefully get some insulation. Alright guys, after my first failed attempt at installing the AC compressor, I got new brackets. These ones are from ICT Billet. Part number is 551494X3. So these are truck brackets, because I have truck accessories, so make sure you get the right ones for the rest of your accessories. They look really nice. They're aluminum, machined, you know. So, so when you get these, you also have to get the F-body tensioner. And then apparently you pull off the rib pulley and put on a smooth pulley, which is included. So kind of beware of that. But yeah, we're gonna get to it. Alright guys, that wraps up the AC compressor install. Went in pretty good. You do definitely want to leave the bolts pretty loose, or maybe even mount the AC compressor to the brackets before you mount the whole bracket to the head. I mounted the AC compressor afterwards, so I really had to loosen everything up to make it work. Another thing that I'm going to have to do that I just remembered is my ground wire right here from the battery was attached directly to the head. So now I gotta figure out a place to ground it to, probably right here. No big deal. I do have to go hook up some wires to our trinary switch down here that will help control our fans. So in case you don't know, trinary switch, it has a high and low pressure to turn off the AC compressor, and then also when the pressure hits a certain pressure, it will control fans. So it's important to have if you have electric fans or you have an auxiliary fan or something like that. So there you go. So got the wires, got all the hoses coming through the firewall there, and then we got the evaporator unit installed on the firewall, and none of it's wired yet. And then also making all kinds of progress. We got the control unit in the dash, and then I rebuilt the outside vents so that they all turn in sync instead of being all floppy around. I tried rebuilding the center vent and it just kind of fell apart, so I'm waiting for that. So next steps are to really start wiring in hoses. So this is a heater control valve I got to splice in down here. Got to route the exterior hoses to the appropriate places, and then wire it all up, and then essentially the AC system will be ready to go. It's going to be a little while till I get to charging it, because while the dash is out, I'm going to clean up all that wiring a little bit more and get the dash installed, obviously. And then waiting on another bracket. So when you use this ICT billet bracket to mount the Sanden air conditioning compressor, and you're going to use your stock accessories here, you have to get a pulley relocation bracket. So I think that mounts it somewhere down in that area. So I'm waiting on that. Luckily, ICT is here in Wichita, which I'm right by Wichita. So they've mailed it out to the post office. So I ordered it this afternoon. It may even be here tomorrow. Should be pretty quick. And then I'll have to go find a belt for this. And ICT billet recommends a certain belt, but because of the pulley down there, I figured up I need, I think it was about an inch shorter than what they recommended. So I'm going to have to go to the parts store. Maybe it's an inch and a half. I'm going to have to go to the parts store and probably get a couple different belts to see which one works the best for my situation. So. Alright guys, we're getting real close to being done with our air conditioning system. Pretty much have everything installed in the car. The electronics are wired up so that the fan turns on and the doors open and close and everything. Drain hose is installed, pretty much everything. Last step here is to make up the hoses. So, comes with several fittings here that you have to take your hoses and you have to crimp on there. So we have to figure out how long we need these hoses and how exactly we want to route them so that we can cut them and then crimp on these fittings. It takes a special tool that I have, and I've never used it before. You only get one chance at this. If you cut them too short, you got to order new hoses because they already have the one end of the hose connected to them. Also, if I do that, mess up, getting it through these grommets in this fitting back here, going through the firewall, they're super tight. Also, the evaporator on the firewall, I installed all the hoses before I put it in there. So it's going to be super hard to get the hoses off. So really, just about going to have to disassemble the whole thing. So it's definitely not something that I want to do. Guys, made up 2 of the lines, or crimped 2 of the lines. So I'm going to show you how to do this on the last one. Alright, so I got my hose here, and I got to put my fitting on. So what I have been doing is go ahead and take the caps off my fittings here and plug it into the line and everything that it needs to go with. I'm going to put this fitting on here and tighten it together, and then take my hose and I kind of run along here the way where I want it to be, and take my Sharpie here, and I don't want it to be super tight or anything, so give it some slack, and then just mark where I want it to cut. Then I've been using these cutters, I don't know exactly what you call them, cut it to length on my mark. And you want to try to cut it as square as possible. Got that done. Then what I'm going to do is put my fitting in here, or put my hose in the fitting, and then I can mark the orientation of this, which on this one, with it being straight, it really doesn't matter. On the ones that are connected to the compressor, it does, because those are elbows, and these AC hoses, they're pretty rigid and they don't twist very much, so you need that alignment proper. But on this one, since it's just a straight fitting, it doesn't matter. So then I disconnect it, and now here's my hose that I need to crimp. And there's a little hole here so you can make sure that your hose is pushed in there all the way. Take your crimping tool here. These are specific sizes. So this is a number 6 AC line, so these are the number 6 dies. We'll put that in there, approximately in the center. Close it, lock it in. You know, I'm sure if you read the directions, it tells you to wear safety glasses, blah, 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 blah. It also tells you to not use an impact gun or whatever, but I'm going to. I'm just using a little impact driver. So with this mounted on the vise, it's pretty easy to do with an actual like ratchet or something. But sitting here on the car with lines connected, it's a little harder to do. So take my tool, make sure the fitting and the hose is properly aligned with that mark, and then just start driving it home. Okay. I check the progress here. So this die, the top of the jaw needs to go past this mark. It's really a small mark here, but you probably can't see. But basically, you tighten it down till it gets past that. Not quite there yet. Almost there. And we're there. So back it off. Open it up. And hopefully your AC fitting is flared. Then your AC fitting is crimped. So that's not coming off there. So we're going to go ahead and connect this up to our dryer line here. You want to take your O-ring. You always want to put some lubrication on there. And then we put this back in our fitting. Now you don't want to cross thread these fittings or anything, so be careful there. We just tighten these down and we'll be done. Alright. And this crimping tool that I got, it's a Mastercool brand 71550 AC manual hose crimper. I got it off of Amazon. I want to say it was around $100. I got it a while ago, so I don't really remember for sure, but really pretty easy job to crimp those. So I'll just tighten these fittings up, and this making the hoses will be done. That basically wraps up our air conditioning install. We still have to charge the system, but otherwise it's installed. So, got the evaporator here in front of the radiator. There's a dryer down there. I opted for the trinary switch, so that will control my electric fans. One thing I have to do is hook this up. So I believe I'll have to do a little bit of reading here real quick, but I believe the LS engines, they ground the fan relay, so I'll tap this into that ground wire, so that, and then one of these wires will, if that's the case, one of the wires will go to ground, and then the other one will go to the relay, so that when that trinary switch closes, it will kick on the fan. I think I'm gonna only do one fan right now, and see how that works. If I have to, I can also jumper this over to the second fan so that when the trinary switch closes, both fans come on. So kind of have to see how that works. Kind of trial and error. So then got a couple of power wires and ground wires for the system. The instructions said connect it directly to the battery, so we did that. Got heater hoses installed, and back down here there's actually a heater valve is what they call it, and that turns on and off the heater, and then it goes through a fitting that's on the firewall here, and then coming over here to the interior, we got the control panel. It's real nice. So a couple good things about it is, so this is off. The fan is completely adjustable. It's not just, you know, high, medium, and low. And, you know, the system in my truck over here, it's an old Aire system. And that blower is very loud, even on the low setting. And so this is on kind of medium low, and it's not terribly loud. And then these are completely adjustable, so you can kind of dial in, you know, if you want to do half dash, half floor, you can. It's not just, you know, dash, floor, defrost. So that's nice. There's no cables on this. It's all completely electronic, so that's nice. The hoses, I put those in after I installed the dash, and man, it would be a lot easier to do if you did that as much as you could before you install the dash. So it came with new defroster vents, and so you could completely install that before you install the dash. Install your hoses onto this the unit back there before you put the dash in. Then you just have to plug in your vents here. It came with some under dash vents as well, because I guess some of the dashes don't have the vents in them, kind of depending on the options that were ordered. Use the little reducer back here to reduce that size. On my dash here, I had these center vents, and this wasn't actually addressed in the instructions. So they had a dual vent outlet down here that you're supposed to use, that the instructions used, and I chose not to do that, so I used these ones. And back here there's just one inlet, and so I had to take one of their adapters and heat it up and kind of make it fit. And then there's only one hose going to it. The instructions had two hoses, so the second outlet for the center dash vent on the evaporator box, I just put some duct tape over to seal that off. So, but overall, the installation, it wasn't too hard. It did take me some time, but I was also restoring the dash. I put in all the sheet metal for the front end, so this process has taken me a long time. The instructions, I found a couple of errors in the instructions, but overall, you know, they're very detailed and step by step, and the errors, they were easy to figure out. So anyways, so far I'm impressed with it. Of course, it's not blowing cold air yet. I haven't hooked up the hot air, so I can't say how it performs, but the pieces and parts and installation were pretty good. So that's where we're at with the air conditioning system.